News with swearing. Daily beans, daily beans. Daily beans, daily beans.
Hello and welcome to the Daily Beans for Tuesday, July 30th, 2019. Today we'll cover Trump's lawsuit to block the House Ways and Means Committee from getting his New York state taxes. Tom Barrack is under federal investigation. Dan Coates is leaving. Russians call Rand Paul a back channel. Debate night part 1 and another mass shooting in America. I'm your host AG, and with me today are Jaleesa Johnson.
Hello.
And Jordan Coburn.
Hello.
Hey guys.
Hey.
We are back from Chicago, and thank you to everyone there. Thank you to the Lincoln Hall staff. Thank you to the patrons and the fans and the whole city. You're amazing. I love Chicago.
Yes, thanks to the Bean. Shout out to the Bean. The Bean was great. Did you guys get to see it? I know we were all doing our own thing.
I didn't see the Bean.
No.
Yeah, I missed it because I thought we were leaving Monday, so I scheduled all my Bean visits and whatnot and my Ferris Bueller's Walking Tour for Sunday, and then found out that our flight was not, in fact, on Monday, so we had to hightail it out.
Yeah,
so,
I don't blame you. I had a weird feeling I wouldn't have time if I didn't just do it. It was like a weird little omen.
You knew.
Yeah.
Very prescient.
Definitely.
Just like you knew about the Mideast Marshall Plan. And we'll talk a little bit about that.
Oh, yeah.
Because something came out today that pretty much echoes exactly what you and I were talking about in episode 6 in December of 2017.
Crazy.
Yeah, with our little one microphone in the kitchen. So we're, mind the sound quality when you check out episode 6, the Marshall Plan, which I recommend that you do listen to that to bone up right around minute 30 or so is when we start talking about it. Bone up on what we're going to release in the main Mueller, She Wrote episode this coming Sunday. We're going to go in depth. We'll touch on a little bit here because Oversight just came out with a report, but for the real in-depth stuff, for the Beans Come True segment, we're going to hit that in Mueller, She Wrote. So stay tuned for that. Before we get to the news, I have some social media homework for you guys. Do you remember when Republican Mark Meadows got pissed that Rashida Tlaib accused him of tokenism for marching out a black Republican staffer during an oversight hearing?
Oh, yes.
And Meadows got all worked up and said she was being racist. And he got really angry, and he said he has black nieces and nephews, and said to Elijah Cummings that he should know better because they're good friends. And Cummings agreed and said that it may come as a shock to some Democrats, but Mark Meadows is one of his best friends. And Mark Meadows has not said one thing to defend his best friend against the racist tweets from Trump about Baltimore being a rat and rodent-infested place that no human being would want to live in. So tweet at Rep. Mark Meadows. It's at his Twitter handle is at Rep. Mark Meadows, Mark with a K, and ask him where the defense is now. I just wanted to kind of get that out there, a little social media homework.
That's a very good point. And I doubt Meadows would even do anything to, return the favor to Cummings, but that just shows character again.
It sure does.
Yeah.
The favor being that he stepped in and said, basically, he is not a racist.
Right.
Yeah,
you
he
have to
came
do
in and
that.
said, we need to clarify for the record that no one is calling you a racist for, bringing out that you're one black staffer or whatever. I still think it was full-on tokenism, and I think most people could agree, but Elijah Cummings wanted to clarify it for the record that that's not what it was.
Yeah, and when people say things like I have black nieces and nephews, I understand where they're coming from, but it reminds me of when people say, God, what was I thinking?
I have a black friend.
Yeah, but something more specific like, as a brother or a husband, I don't think women should be assaulted. It's like as a human, right? You should just not be racist as a human or things like that. So, yeah, I thought it was strange that he went to that real quick. Like, you don't know my family. It's like you probably hate your family.
Right. How supportive were you of,
your nieces and nephews? Let's hear from them. Let's have them on the pod.
Yeah, and also, what did you do to get family members that were black? Did you, advocate for a mixed race marriage?
Right, set them up on a blind date.
Not saying that's what you need to do to not be a racist, but you probably did jack shit.
Yeah, how happy were you that your brother brought home a woman of color?
Right,
fine. Or this would be
her.
Perfect for my career.
Exactly, yeah. It's
or
just
sister
weird.
brought home a black, I don't know.
Yeah, right. I don't know the details, but I see your point. It's just very strange to use that as your defense, and just
very
reminds
strange.
me, of when people always say, as a husband, I don't like this. And I'm okay.
That's a red flag, and so is I have a black friend, or I have a black whatever. I married a Mexican immigrant, marrying somebody makes you, but if you're a misogynist, then it's a double whammy.
Right.
Do you know what
like
I mean?
you can't do harm to your spouse. Like that whole argument is just, I don't understand it.
And it's also asking for praise, basically, for the fact that you are friends with someone who happens to be a black man who's at the head of a committee. That's honestly a very powerful position also. So it's like, are you saying that you should be heralded because normally only if this person were white I would have been their friend.
And was it Cummings that said it or Meadows?
Meadows was like, back me up, basically.
Oh, he egged him on a little bit?
In the hearing.
No, Cummings offered his input.
That's what I thought. Okay, yeah, but even so, it's still weird. But yeah,
I thought
think
he
it was
referenced Cummings before Cummings said anything.
Yes.
Yeah, because I don't think Cummings would have said that unwarranted outside of maybe just like, let's calm down, everyone.
Okay, I thought he was.
Well, yeah, because he was
yeah.
chairing the committee,
Yeah.
and there's rules of decorum, etc. So that was his interjection there.
But it was still very personal. You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I thought Meadows, though, like tossed it back to Cummings before Cummings said anything.
Let's play that clip, guys.
I'd have to watch the whole thing.
Yeah, I would
in
too.
Context.
I have that in
it
my memory
seemed
for
to
some
me
reason.
that Cummings was already interjecting because Talib and Meadows were kind of fighting.
Totally.
And he was like,
I
stop,
remember
stop,
that.
stop. And then Meadows gave his, we're friends. I have black nieces and nephews. You know me.
Yes.
that's
That's
you
all I
know
mean is that
me.
you know
Yeah.
me.
Oh,
Yeah, that's what I'm
yeah.
talking about.
And that's
Yeah.
when Cummings was like, yes, actually, and some people will be shocked to hear this, you and I are best friends, or we're very best friends, or whatever.
Yeah. But where's the friendship now?
Yep. Bye. So, tweet at Rep Mark Meadows. Ask him, where's your friendship? Where's your defense? Because I'd like to know myself. So
Meadows of friendship.
and we have to also think about all the attacks, the racist attacks against Cummings and his district this week, coming on the heels of, preemptively, not on the heels of, but right before today when the House Oversight Committee and Elijah Cummings released this report on the Middle East Marshall Plan. So that I think might have something to do with it as well.
Interesting.
All right, guys, let's get into the news. Let's hit the hot notes. Hot notes. All right, guys, we previously reported that Trump was preemptively suing the House Ways and Means Committee to block them from requesting his tax returns from New York State, since Governor Cuomo recently signed into law a statute allowing that committee to request and receive state tax returns. Richard Neal of the House Ways and Means Committee has already said he would not petition New York to get the state tax returns because he was already suing the IRS and the Treasury for Trump's federal tax returns. And his reasoning for that, even though he doesn't need one under the law, his reasoning is to obtain the federal returns to assess the effectiveness of the federal presidential tax audit program. And getting the state tax returns would not benefit him in that pursuit, basically. So he said, I'm not going to ask for the state tax returns. I don't need them. I need the federal ones. I'm going to sue for them, even though if he asked, they would hand him over. And recently, Neal's been facing mounting pressure from committee members to ask for those state tax returns. So Trump filed suit to block that from happening preemptively and said that because it was related to the federal tax return suit, it needs to be heard by the same judge. And some folks believe that by trying to tie those cases together so they'd be heard by the same judge is Trump kind of judge shopping. He's judge shopping because the current judge, Trevor McFadden, who is presiding over the federal tax case, is a Trump appointee. But the plaintiffs argued that the cases are not tied together, and McFadden agreed emphatically and quickly, and so randomly assigned a different judge to the case, who is Carl Nichols, who by chance also happens to be a Trump appointee. So we'll keep you posted. They rolled the dice. They won. We'll keep you posted on the status of both cases.
Yeah, they stacked the courts pretty good, so the odds are in their favor.
Yep, highly. So yeah, we'll follow those stories. I still don't have any updates on the federal return lawsuit. And I know that Congress is going on their summer break. They're on it, I think, as of this week. So I think they'll come back in September. Or something
Getting their
like
beach bod on. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's why we get all these shirtless Obama pics.
Right?
Hell yeah.
So here's this thing I was talking about with the Marshall Plan. Jordan, you've been reporting on Tom Barrack. I don't know.
The
I
anti-Barack.
say Barrack, but I have no idea if that's
Barrack,
correct.
I think it's Barrack. And you've been reporting on that for Mueller, She Wrote, and you drafted him this week again for your fantasy indictment team. What's the latest?
Yes, I did. I have been drafting him probably for the last 3 months at least because of his ties to what I would presume would be funneling illegally money from outside entities through the Trump inaugural fund into the Trump campaign. But we're learning right now that people are actually investigating him. Federal prosecutors are investigating him, and his. It's a similar charge, right? It's essentially acting as an unregistered foreign agent, just specifically on behalf of the UAE and the Middle East. The UAE and Saudi Arabia. That was a weird mistake. In what they're looking at as a focal point is an energy speech, essentially, that Trump was making back in 2016. So they have, it seems like there's evidence to believe, right, that these folks were helping draft the language of the speech that went through Rashid Al Malik, who's an Emirati businessman who is very close to the rulers of the UAE. And it looks like Barrack is essentially facilitating these talks to influence Trump's campaign before he got elected and while he got elected and during the transition. So there's going to be a lot deeper of a hot note on that this weekend because this is sort of just breaking right now. But the good news is it looks like hopefully there's an indictment around the corner. What's interesting, though, is it's the U.S. attorneys in Brooklyn, New York, that's looking into this right now. And New York Times reporting that came out today has said that Barrack has essentially volunteered himself to be interviewed about all of this that's going on. And they've essentially been like, we don't really need more from you at this time, which has got to be a shitty place for him to be in. Because he's like, oh, God, he wants control over what they're looking.
Right?
Yeah.
But cooperate, etc.
Yeah, let me help you help me.
Totally. And in episode 84, 7 weeks ago, we had reported that prosecutors also questioned Rashid Al Malik, an Emirati real estate developer close to MBZ and the head of Emirati intelligence. Mr. Al Malik is also close to Mr. Trump's friend Tom Barrack, and investigators are asking whether Al Malik was part of an illegal influence scheme, according to two people familiar with the matter. And I put here in the script, we know that Al Malik had pre-election contact with Barrack and probably Manafort, since it was Barrack who recommended Manafort to Trump in a letter that we've all read. And today we got that confirmation that they had many discussions between Manafort, Al Malik, Gates, and Barrack.
Yes.
Nice.
And so it's interesting because based on this New York Times reporting, it looks like they're saying the attempts to influence that speech and that policy, there's not evidence currently that is super consequential that makes it look like that effort was successful. That's the language of the New York Times article.
That the effort was successful.
That the effort was unsuccessful.
Or either or.
Yeah.
But there's definitely evidence that they tried because now they have emails between Manafort, Malik, and Barrack and Gates about sending, and Al Malik sent it to MBZ to give his input on the part of the speech and to give it back. But yeah, you're right. They're saying it was unsuccessful because Trump actually really didn't talk about it in his Mayflower speech.
Exactly. So I think that's an important distinction to make. I don't know if, because I got excited when I first saw this and I was thinking that it was going to be one of those things where we see all these dots, connecting.
Like a home run kind of thing.
And from start to finish, there's a bunch of criminality established, but it could look like it's one of those things where sort of how Trump is now being investigated further by House committees as to his efforts to obstruct justice, not necessarily his success at obstructing justice because of those people around him.
But if you think about it, too, maybe that stuff didn't fully end up in the speech. It was there still. But if you consider everybody who was at that Mayflower meeting and that since then Trump has 7 times secretly done an end run around Congress to avoid having to comply with the 1, 2, 3 agreements, which are all the nuclear agreements that we have in place internationally to help curb proliferation, and also the end run around Congress, because Congress is really the only one who can grant the ability for us to give those nuclear secrets or that nuclear technology to a foreign entity. And so they have been successful in that. Now, they haven't built the reactors, but I think this is kind of like obstruction of justice, where you don't have to actually commit the crime. There doesn't have to be an underlying crime in order to obstruct it. I don't think that you have to be successful at lobbying in order to be in trouble for lobbying for a foreign country without registering.
Yeah.
Even just attempting to do it, I think, is breaking the law without alerting the Attorney General, which is what registration under FARA is. And as we know, there's a new FARA unit at the Department of Justice run by Brendan Van Grack, who is one of Mueller's team. And Mueller handed off. I bet one of those 12 redacted handoff cases in Appendix D of the Mueller report is this Tom Barrack Marshall Plan, Middle East Marshall Plan investigation. And I think he might have handed that off to Van Grack at the FARA unit. And it might have been one of the things that helped create that unit, along with the Bijan, Kian, and Flynn lobbying for Turkey illegally without registering. And, of course, the Manafort and Gates and Van der Zwaan failing also to lobby as foreign agents.
That's so cool. It's like Trump is creating jobs.
Well, apparently Kushner blocked Barrack's desire to have a high-up job in Trump's administration, which is interesting, right? Because Kushner has established himself as a Middle East guy.
Oh, so that's got to be why.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is interesting to think that there's rifts
Infighting. They make fun of Democrats.
Yeah, but Barrack is for decades been advocating for certain policies, not necessarily on behalf of, and that's going to be his main argument in court, I think, right? As New York Times was reporting this as well. His representatives are saying this wasn't on behalf. You can't charge him for a FARA violation because he was not acting on behalf of any country. These are just ideas that he has been saying organically from his own mouth and brain in a vacuum, essentially, for decades. So
yeah, but you email that speech to MBZ through Al Malik to get their input, and it's spelled out too. This isn't one of those, maybe he wasn't corrupt, he didn't have corrupt intent, or he wasn't willfully or knowingly doing this. He was like, we need to make sure that Trump puts this in his speech, and also in the Republican National Committee platform on Saudi Arabian nuclear technology. And we're going to get into this on Sunday. This involves Jeff Sessions, who was going to be promised a reactor built in his state from the same company through the same deal. And we know Eric Prince was involved in this, and he also was brought in with MBZ and George Nader in the Seychelles meeting, and then met again with Zamel from Psy Group in August 3rd. So this is all part of that grand bargain that is what Seth Abramson calls it. IP3 is involved, Copson and Flynn. As we know, Flynn was texting Copson from the dais of the inauguration saying sanctions are going to get torn up. We can go forward with a Marshall Plan, where Copson was saying, yep, we just build these reactors in Saudi Arabia. We put bases around them and troops around them, and we can recolonize the Middle East. Those were his words. KT McFarland is involved in this. She was the DepSec for Michael Flynn, and also her mentor, Bud McFarland, who was the one who wanted to do this, build the Saudi Arabia nuclear reactors, involve Russia because they have the oil and gas through the Rosneft sale, probably. I don't know. That's just conjecture. But this was all our conjecture 2 years ago, and it's all turning out to be right. I could be wrong on that. And then also KT McFarland was offered the ambassadorship to Singapore, and there were only 4 ambassadors at that Mayflower meeting, and one of them was Singapore. Italy was another one, and I can't remember the other 2, but they were important part of this deal.
Yeah, the overlap is pretty interesting. And I feel like this has been like a plan for the Republican Party since like the Bush administration, even probably before that,
Yeah, because Bud McFarland seems like one of the tip of the spear on this.
Totally,
and got KT McFarland the job, and then Barack got Manafort the job in the Trump campaign, and thereby Gates. And here comes everybody. And then Flynn is the security advisor. It leaves under mysterious circumstances. We still don't think that he was fired because Trump said, yeah, I'll say that we fired him. That sounds better than whatever really happened, which we don't know. And that was reported in the book Fear. So there's all these different dots are being connected. All of this would be this FARA violation is one small part of what could be possibly a giant, larger counterintelligence investigation that's part of the Mueller investigation.
Right. And I think the crux that the New York Times is reporting on currently is that 2016 speech, but like we're talking about right now, there's so many more things to investigate that I'm sure they're already in the process of investigating. So I think this is going to be one of those things that it's starting out with this, and there's a entire web of instances that potentially could amount to, at the very least, FARA violations. And
at the most, world domination.
Yeah, and at the most, we might never find out because counterintelligence stuff is usually way super classified and top secret, and they just might disappear, and we'll go, I wonder whatever happened to that dude, like Myth said.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Vote, guys.
Yeah, vote. That's very important because then we can get Barr out of there, and then these prosecutions can go forward. Cool. Well, thanks for that update, and we'll have you go over that in a lot more detail, including this new report that's come out from the House Oversight Committee via Elijah Cummings on the Middle East Marshall Plan, which we've been on since the beginning. So check out episode 6, The Marshall Plan, Mind the Sound Quality. And enjoy us probably pronouncing it Mueller and talking from a microphone in our kitchen.
It's nostalgic. I think it's so cute looking back.
Yeah, it is. And it starts around minute 32 with your introduction to who KT McFarland is and how Bud McFarlane is in there. And they aren't related. It's McFarland and Bud McFarlane.
There you go, yeah.
So 2 different people.
I confuse them sometimes.
Yeah, one was the protege of the other. So this week also, a Russian media outlet reported that the head of the Council of Foreign Affairs Committee on International Affairs, Konstantin Kosachev, has signaled to Donald Trump they hope to use Rand Paul to establish a dialogue. He said, quote, Mr. Paul has outs for the top U.S. leadership, is close to Donald Trump, and we expect that we will be able to convey our signals through him.
Aliens much?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, seriously. That's such a weird way to word that.
So, yeah, and as we know, Rand Paul was one of the 7 senators and 1 representative that spent the 4th of July last year in Russia, 2 weeks ahead of that meeting with Putin and Trump. And there's a love letter, remember?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's cute. It's like the 7 dwarfs, and Rand Paul is like Snow White. Yeah, cute little love letter. It's like a, little cute Disney rom-com.
Yeah, basically, Rand Paul went to Trump and said, hey, I'm going to Russia again in August, a couple weeks after, like a month after they went to the July 4th thing. And said, hey, I'm going to Russia. Can you write me a note to give to Putin? Because I really want to meet him. And so Trump wrote him a note about, how we can have better relations or whatever. And Rand Paul shows up in Russia. But I guess Putin wasn't there. I think he was gone or something. So he never got to meet his
He went out the back when
dream
he
man.
found out they were there.
So Rand Paul, Russian.
That's all you need to know.
Rand Paul, Russian.
I thought it was like an equal sign, but colon works too. Yeah.
Russia Rand. So, yeah, that's an interesting news story. And now, time for our new segment. I don't know if I'll ever repeat it again. Do you think they broke the law? It's time to play Sketch or Nah.
Yes. So cute. You need like a little ding on the end there or something.
Ding.
Yeah.
This week in Sketch or Nah, the Director of National Intelligence, Dan Coates, who many considered the last adult in the room of this administration,
A memoir.
is leaving, and Trump has nominated Congressman Ratcliffe as his replacement. During the Mueller testimony, Ratcliffe was a total dick, occupying the same mental space as Bill Barr in his belief that presidents can't obstruct justice because they're above the law, and the president is the law as the head of the executive branch. And we know that last week, Trump consulted with Devin Nunes on who he should nominate as the new Director of Intelligence.
God damn it.
So this job was created, the Director of National Intelligence was created after 9/11 to ensure that the heads of intelligence agencies were communicating effectively. They felt that there was a breakdown in communication between like FBI, CIA, NSA that could have otherwise prevented the 9/11 attacks or at least warned some folks about them because they weren't really communicating about it. But now we have a Bill Barr clone and Nunes, a Nunes sycophant, being nominated to hold this incredibly important position. And Ratcliffe is the only Republican who sits on both the House Judiciary and the House Intelligence Committees. So he has all the information, the unredacted Mueller report, and all the information that the Intelligence Committee would have, which would presumably include a counterintelligence investigation, unless the FBI is withholding those briefings because they know that Nunes and folks like Ratcliffe would leak it back to Donald Trump. We've noted in the past that they won't like, remember when the Trump administration was coming in and the FBI was like, do we tell him about the Russia stuff because he's at the heart of it? And so they withheld a lot of information even to the new incoming president in order to preserve national security. So they may be not telling the House Intelligence Committee about, the counterintelligence investigation because Nunes is on it and people like Ratcliffe. And we kind of know that to be true, sort of, because Adam Schiff is like, I haven't seen anything either. But, like, who do you tell? You can't just be the FBI, CIA, NSA, and DNI and say, I'm only going to tell the Democrats, because then you're politicizing your organization and your agency. So who do you tell? And that's what James Baker has said on Maddow. Like, yeah, I wish I had an answer. That's what McCabe told me. Like, we're in a unique situation where we, the people that we would otherwise brief are moles to the president, who is the target of this investigation. And so McCabe didn't say those words to me, but they were both like, that's just my read of it.
Right.
Not McCabe, my read of the situation. But McCabe and Baker are both like, we're in an unprecedented situation where this is normally what we would do.
Yeah, we didn't get this far with Nixon, right? And the parties were different as far as the power
And he wasn't
yeah.
really doing part of a counterintelligence investigation because Nixon stole from the Democrats. He kept his indictments all American.
Yeah.
So Ratcliffe would have to give up his seat then.
Yeah, I don't think he could be congressman anymore.
Right, and then they'd have to have a special election in his district?
I think for reps you do have a special election. Yeah.
Huh.
Mm-hmm. So
Way to abandon your people to be a piece of shit. God damn it.
He does have to make it through the Senate, which I think he will. It's mostly Republican.
Mm-hmm.
I only think you only need because Mitch went nuclear. I think you only need 51 votes. I think he'll get them.
Yeah.
But what do you think, sketch or not?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, definitely 100% sketch. Any way you slice it, he's an enemy of all of the causes that we're investigating and hoping for. So
For sure.
Yeah, and this isn't to say like, yeah, okay, he's on the committee and he has all the information. He could give it to Trump. That's not to say Trump already hasn't gotten it from him or Nunes.
Totally.
But now he's going to be director of national intelligence in charge of these three agencies who are continuing an ongoing counterintelligence investigation into whether or not Trump and some Republicans are assets of a foreign government or foreign governments. And he's going to be the one in charge of making sure the communication runs smoothly between these. I feel like if I were the FBI, NSA, and CIA, I'd be making my own little separate secret communications tunnels underneath.
Ooh, maybe they are
buildings
like
to
an
each other.
underground resistance of intelligence off. Yeah, the alt gov stuff. They might be on it.
I would like to think so.
Hopefully, yeah.
And at the very least, I would hope that they wouldn't brief moles like this on the counterintelligence information. But then again, you get back to the question of who do you brief, and it's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's tough.
I don't think it's even a concern to me that he's sitting on committees and might take that information to Trump. I guarantee Nunes has already told him everything. So
Yeah. Every day he probably reports like, "That's all I know, sir."
yeah, I don't think that's even the issue. The issue is that he's a sympathizer. He's a sympathizer with Trump, and like you said, that extraordinarily overreaching amount of executive power that they interpret, in the Constitution. So
yeah, and I don't think we could trust him to keep those lines of communication, even to be told about some of these investigatory situations as the head of DNI from people in the FBI and the CIA and the
Right.
NSA.
I'm
Be
struggling.
like, we can't tell him. They have to sit around and go, we can't tell him.
yeah, I just can't believe that there's not a level of requirements for these positions.
I was just
Like you
gonna
have
say.
to have this amount of years
But that's what
in
Trump
the
wants.
CIA or the FBI or like at least one of the agencies that you're overlooking.
Yeah, he has no
And-
intelligence.
No intelligence.
Right, it's like our
Period.
it's
But
like
no,
our
he has no
education
intelligence,
secretary. It's like our head of the EPA. It's like
experience.
all of these offices that are occupied increasingly by people that have no actual experience.
And
He's
in fact,
only
are
in-
anti
Right,
that
right.
stuff.
Yeah.
Like the labor guy is anti-labor, and the EPA guy is anti-environment, and so
It seems to be his only
the
requirement is
education
that
lady
they're a
is
sympathizer.
anti-education.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're right, and we've always just had these as norms. Like this is just normally what
Yeah,
happens.
because you wouldn't be such
Who
a
the fuck would
crazy
do that?
person that you would put someone in that position that has no experience in it.
Yeah.
That's absurd. But guess what? Absurdity is
Here.
Yes, it is
So-
here and now.
So I think the consensus is sketch.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
Full.
Definitely.
Thank you
I
for
can't think
playing
of
sketch or not.
Yeah. I can't think of any way in which it would not be sketch.
Mm-hmm.
All right, cool. Sketch it is.
All right.
Let's move on to the next story. And this one's a sad one. Jaleesa, we have another mass shooting in America. What do we know?
Today we learned 4 people were killed in a shooting at the Gilroy Garlic Festival in Northern California, including a 6-year-old boy, a 13-year-old girl, and a man in his 20s. 12 people were injured. One of the shooters, who is a 19-year-old man, was also killed at the scene. And a second shooter seems to be still at large, I guess. The police recently released his information to help people identify him. And apparently the shooter that's now dead bought an AK-47 style rifle legally in Nevada a few weeks ago. And what drives me crazy is that Republicans are so quick to ban things like birth control and abortion and, weed and gay marriage. But when it comes to guns, they're like, oh, yeah, bans won't work.
Yeah, exactly.
But here we are.
It's an odd cognitive dissonance, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Bans don't work.
I didn't see the reporting that they confirmed there was a second shooter.
Yeah, they said that he's still out there. I guess they're looking for him, but they were afraid to release the information because they didn't want to give him attention at the same time, but they need to find him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they already released the name of the guy that was killed.
That died, yeah. But there
Yeah.
were 2 people that were seen shooting.
Yeah.
Apparently a
Yeah.
white supremacist.
Oh, really? I didn't hear that yet.
I didn't hear that either.
On one of his social media accounts. He had shared a book. I can't remember the name of the book, but it's a super racist, anti-Semitic book.
It's a social Darwinism book.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So I don't think it was specifically like
Social
a white supremacy book.
Survival of the
but
fittest.
it's
Ethnic cleansing, perhaps?
Yeah, he apparently he posted that caption in conjunction with a Smokey the Bear image.
That's weird.
And then posted this book in reference to social Darwinism. So
I wonder.
Honestly, it's pretty cryptic, I think. Obviously, it's something very aggressive and extremist,
not very
to some
decipherable,
level,
on the surface.
but I don't think it was specifically like a white supremacy book. But that book definitely has extreme tones of misogyny and racism in it.
Okay,
But-
so not necessarily white power, white nationalism, white
Yeah.
supremacy, but definitely racist and misogynist.
Right.
Yeah.
Because social Darwinism as a concept, right, is like only the strongest survive, and that's a completely in a
eugenics.
vacuum.
Totally.
Yeah, not acknowledging the reasons why some people may be quote unquote weaker in a society.
If we can't get them out, we'll breed them out.
Yep.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but yeah, because I was looking to see too if there was anything that was like explicitly linked to white supremacy, but
I guess we'll have to give
I
it a
don't
few
know.
more days.
He's
But
definitely a hate guy.
oh yeah,
a hate guy all the way. And then I read an article recently that domestic terrorism in the last couple of years has been mostly from white supremacists. So
I think all.
I heard a really high percentage, but
Yeah.
might as well be all at this point. It's just that's how high it is. And that's why I wouldn't be surprised if this guy was a part of that. But it's just, in general, it's a crazy time now that we have like pretty much a segment for mass shootings. Like it happens so often now. For any reason would be awful, but seeing this pattern of nationalism or whatever, it's really scary.
Well, we'll hold our assumptions and wait until we get more information.
Yeah.
On
Good point. Yeah.
I also read something that said one of the artists that was on stage when the shooting happened, right by their stage, they said that they could hear from the stage someone ask, "Why are you doing this?" And the artist said that they heard a response that said, "Because I'm angry,"
Yeah. I heard
which
that
is
too.
like chilling.
So,
I mean, it's all
AK-47
chilling, but
camouflage, AK-47 style rifle. I don't know if it was fully automatic or not. We'll get more information as as
The
story
police
comes
were
out.
outgunned for sure. Yeah.
Ugh, that's terrible. Yes, and our hearts out to everyone in that community and everyone in the country. We all are affected by these as they continue to happen. And there's, keeping Republicans in power who are bought and paid for by the NRA is never going to stop this.
Do you think Republicans would change their minds about this issue if like the birth control industry gave them money? Do you think it's really like just about money to them at this point?
no, because they don't have the backing of religion, which is
That's
one of
another
the most
point, yeah.
powerful, like, indirect lobbies, basically.
Yeah.
Like, the money that is wrapped up in the religious reasons that they can use to propagate pro-life things. You don't have that same basis that you would with pro-choice, I think.
Yeah, and you lose the wedge issue of standing up for fetuses who have no voice.
Because of God.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's if, like, let's say all of a sudden Republicans came and stood up for Muslim Americans would be like, get the fuck out. I have
True.
a voice and I'm not allowing you to use me as a pawn for your political gains. But
Yeah.
fetuses do not have a voice. That is why I think they use
Wow.
pro-choice
Yeah.
and
That is a very
anti-choice
interesting
as
point.
Right.
a wedge issue, is because
It's an intangible basis of your argument.
Yeah, they
Like, here's a
can't
gr-
speak for themselves, so you
Yeah.
can say whatever you want for them.
So, like, here's a great example. There's a guy named Pat Tillman. He was an Arizona Cardinal. He was a football player. He quit his $1 million, bazillion-dollar contract to go and fight in the war in Iraq. And he was killed, and McCain spoke at his funeral, but the family was upset because McCain kept invoking God, and Pat Tillman was an atheist. So they had to ask McCain to kindly stop talking about God because Pat Tillman didn't believe in God. And also he didn't want to politicize, the family didn't want to politicize Pat Tillman's death as being like pro-war and oorah. And so that is, again, using somebody who can't speak for themselves to earn political points or to drive a wedge in things that are social constructs like religion, abortion, LGBTQ, Black Lives Matter, NRA, gun, like all these, socially conscious movements.
Totally.
conscious movements.
And sure, maybe a fetus, if it were able to speak for itself, it would say, "I want to live." I get that argument.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Right, but just then, like you said, AG, using that, like when they use like tokenism and things like that, it does seem like it's for the wrong reasons, despite the fact that
Yeah, I don't mean that.
No, I know you don't mean that. Yeah.
That were they to speak,
They'd be like, goodbye, cruel world. Kill me now. Yeah, no, I don't think they'd be depressed yet.
I can't take it.
I mean, some people, they say that they felt that way from day one. But yeah, you never get the chance, and I understand that argument, but I also believe, I'm pro-choice. So yeah, I totally see where you're coming from in terms of people abusing that, I guess, voiceless victim.
Yeah. Or just a voiceless person at all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, obviously...
Or non-person.
Right. It's like this conversation is one of the most contended ones in the history of humanity because at some point agency switches over from the person bearing the child to the child, and that's going to be
that point, yeah,
right,
yeah.
and that's going to be argued over forever. And
but they ignore the voices of the mother who have
they
voices.
absolutely ignore. Yes, and that's the biggest issue too. It's like you want to assign this agency to a fetus that maybe if they were sentient enough to understand their existence and their immortality and the complications of all of these things, they would be like, no, I think I would rather live. But it's like that is so far from ever happening. Whereas you have the mother who is very present, very much, very sentient,
understands what it means to be alive in this world,
and a mother in this world,
and to be pregnant. Yes, and we're not listening to her.
Yeah, totally. All right, guys, we have a social media call to action. It's time for hashtag.
Hashtag.
All right, guys, this week kicks off the summer recess for Congress, and we are asking you to call your representatives to tell them that you support impeachment. If you do, I'm not saying to change your mind right now and then do it. But we're at a tipping point here. More people are becoming for impeachment as time goes on, especially since the Mueller testimony, which the vice chair and the chair of those two committees consider a watershed moment for this. And I'd like to ask you to call a phone number and then post a phone number on social media with a hashtag call for impeachment. That number is 202-224-3121. Tell the operator, you'll get a lady, tell her your zip code and ask to be transferred to your representative. And then tell your representative that you support impeachment, and do this as many times as you can per day. You can have Siri do it for you. And then, again, please post that phone number, 202-224-3121, on social media. Tag us at Daily Beans Pod. Share the phone number and tell everyone to do the same thing using hashtag call for impeachment.
That's awesome. We got to make a song for that number. Like Mike Jones, he put his number in a song and everyone knows it. Yeah.
Oh.
Shout out to 2003.
Like
what was
1-800 Cars for Kids?
Yeah. What's his number? 281-360-8004.
877 Cash Now.
Oh, yeah, that one too. I know that. Yeah. It's just smart, get a little jingle going and they might actually have some traction there.
All right. They might be giants. You have an assignment as well. Write a song for 202-224-3121. And... I'm kidding. You don't have to do that.
But it'd be cool.
My go-to for the best piece of music that ever comes out that's less than 1 minute.
Follow-up hashtag spam. They must be giants. Or they might be giants. Yeah.
And finally, you guys, the debates start tonight. Night one is tonight. It's Tuesday night, as you know, unless you're time traveling or a patron. Tuesday is notoriously a big news day, so subjects could change as the days go on, or as the day goes on. But tonight we will hear from candidates. Marianne Williamson, this is from left to right on the stage.
Okay, and not politically speaking, they're all left.
Yeah, in fact, some guy named Steve Bullock is on the far right, but he's still left-leaning. Marianne Williamson, Tim Ryan, Amy Klobuchar, Pete Buttigieg, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, Beto O'Rourke, John Hickenlooper, John Delaney, and Steve Bullock.
Hickenlooper, I like that.
Hickenlooper's a great name, right? It sounds like some fantasy sci-fi.
It is.
Job. Like, what do you do in the future? I'm a Hickenlooper.
Yeah.
Just some bandit that wears cargo pants all the time.
I loop Hicks.
I'm Hickenlooper. There are some new names in there.
Yeah. Steve Bullock.
Yeah. Interesting. How does that happen?
Any relation
How
to
does anybody
Sandra?
watch the last debates and be like, we need more?
They entered the race and they met the requirements, which were the same requirements for the first debates.
Yeah.
To get on stage.
So technically, someone at the last minute can come in the day of the election and be like, I made the requirements. No, they cut it off at some point, right?
There's some people who didn't get in. I know Tom Steyer didn't get in, and I know Tim Ryan didn't get in.
Oh, no.
We didn't want him to. Anyway, it's fine.
Tim Ryan was in the last one, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Tom Steyer's been doing all the TV ads.
He came in after the last
people
one.
with TV ads right now outside of the
which
major.
just goes to show that money doesn't always buy you debate time.
That's
So
very true.
That's true. And also the impeachment issue is not the single issue people are
No.
interested in, obviously, because that's what Tom Steyer's made himself synonymous with.
But it is grassroots money that is going to get you on the stage. And they did that specifically, because you have to have from a certain amount of states, you have to have 65,000 donations, that you have to be, et cetera, et cetera.
I love that.
I do too. And so it's really about the grassroots. And what's great is if you've given to any of these candidates, which I've given to a few, once for, a smaller amount, you can continue to give to them up to $2,600 because that's the cap for personal contributions to campaigns.
Very cool.
Per person, I believe. So tonight is going to be the showdown right in center stage, Sanders and Warren. The debate begins at 8 Eastern, live from the Fox Theater in Detroit, Michigan. Interesting theater name choice. But I think it's going to end up being mostly about Bernie and Warren. It's going to be mostly about healthcare. And Kamala's not on this stage, and she's got her new healthcare plan out, which is sort of a combination of pure-ass Medicare for all and the ACA. So this is the spectrum on which the Democrats are operating in healthcare. Full socialized medicine all the way to, shore up the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare. Biden's on the ACA edge, and everybody else is somewhere in the middle, and I think Sanders and Warren are both on the very left, and I think Kamala Harris wants to get to the left part, to the full-on Medicare, getting rid of private insurance, but over a 10-year period, so it's kind of a transition.
That's kind of her pattern, too, just like with that Pell Grant policy she suggested. She said you have to have a business in a disenfranchised neighborhood for 3 years just to get your Pell Grant loans reversed. And people were like, that's hard to do. But she seems to be someone who believes in like long-term plans.
She does
and, like,
look
investing.
long-term.
Yeah.
The problem with a 10-year plan is that even if she gets elected twice, that's only 8 years.
Yeah, it's going to surpass her
and you're not going to
administration.
get it done in the first 100 days unless we flip the Senate. We might need another round of elections to get more Dems in the Senate, which is what I believe will happen as time goes on. But a 10-year plan, then, generally after Democrats serve 2 terms, another Republican comes in, and then they just reverse everything before it fully takes effect. Where with Obamacare, we got it in effect and going before Obama left office, and that's why its popularity doubled and then tripled.
That's why Republicans hated it. They're like, this is too soon.
God
Change.
Damn it. Yeah. They're like, I didn't want him to like it.
Yeah, they tried to knock it down so many times. That's why I like Warren. I think she'd be great for getting things done quickly.
She's got plans, man.
Yeah.
Yep. So we'll just look out for that. Look out for the Sanders-Warren fireworks, because we know, I've watched them both debate quite a bit. I think Sanders is curt and terse and very, very emphatic about the wealth gap.
Yeah.
And I think they both want the same kind of health care. So you're probably not going to see any kind of sort of back and forth on that with them, but perhaps other things. I think that the shooting that just happened is going to come up, including just shootings in general and gun control, because Bernie wasn't very good on gun control because he was a senator from Vermont where they all have guns and they like their guns, and he represented them. And so he didn't get very good grades for a Democrat. He wasn't a Democrat. He's an independent. On his from the NRA, or he got better grades.
Which means not good grades from Democrats.
For us,
A Warren Sanders ticket would be cool too, though.
So she could attack him on guns. She could, and let's see what else is going to be in there. Now, I know healthcare will be a big debate. Of course, Russia, I think, probably won't come up as much with this group, because the ones who really brought it up the last time were in the other group or aren't on stage anymore, aren't in here, like de Blasio.
Right, but China came up a lot.
China did come up a lot. I think that's going to be an issue. Tariffs, I think they'll talk about the tax plan a lot, because this tax bill, I think we were $1 trillion deficit, and it's on the backs of the middle class for the benefit of the wealthy. And I think this is where Warren can really shine with her wealth tax, like 2 cents on the dollar above $50 million, and we'll be able to pay for so many incredible programs, including healthcare and college. They might differ a little bit on free tuition versus tuition reduction. Or
but all very progressive ideas. Is this the drinking game, by the way? All these things you've listed, I feel like they're good.
Oh, sure, yeah,
might as well. It's gonna be later in the evening. We can
rewind, write them down.
Yeah, I'm watching at a bar, so I might actually play.
Really?
yeah.
Which bar?
I don't know, but it's on my Facebook calendar.
I think
yeah.
I'm willing to bet Elizabeth Warren will be asked about Bernie Sanders and his speech on socialism and and maybe give her a chance to back away from the word socialism and to see if, because a lot of their policies are identical. And would you consider yourself a socialist? I bet they're going to ask Warren that.
Right. But
Over the course of their career, though, Warren definitely has been more to the right than Bernie has. Bernie's consistently been an independent person, outwardly democratic socialist person his entire tenure basically in office, whereas Warren started more to the right than she is now.
I made a mistake. Tim Ryan is on the stage.
Oh, okay. Sorry,
okay.
Tim. But also, as far as socialism goes, we're pretty much in a socialist society. It's just for rich people, right? So I feel like there are so many things that are going towards helping
Well,
the
our
rich.
socialist stuff is good stuff, but it's costing the government money, and the rich people aren't paying their fair share of taxes to cover the costs.
Yeah. That
That's kinda
tax
what's going
cut
on.
thing, that wouldn't be considered socialism for, for rich people.
Well, it is a corporate hand. Yeah, it is socialism for rich people.
The bailout of the banks. Yeah, it's
the
like
bailout of the banks.
they're
Tax,
so
corporate wealth. They
hypocritical.
call it corporate wealth.
Yeah, they have safety nets for being
Yes.
rich.
Hence democratic socialism.
Exactly, and I'm all for it.
Ding ding.
They're trying to make that word seem so bad.
I
It's the
know.
blue scare, right?
And-
Not
and
the red scare now.
And in fact, we were talking about this during the 2016 election in the run up to that, when people are like, I was like, I don't understand why Republicans hate socialism so much. They've been stealing money from the middle class and redistributing it to themselves for decades.
Yeah, that's their
So,
whole thing.
That is corporate welfare. That is, you're right, socialism for the wealthy. That's Republican socialism.
Mm-hmm.
All right, guys, that is our show. Do you guys have any final thoughts?
No.
Oh, I thought of a quote. Well, I didn't think of it. I read it. It was, never take criticism from someone you wouldn't take advice from. That was really cool. But also listen to people. I mean, like, it goes both ways. Don't be a dick. But also, if someone's a dick, don't listen to him.
Yeah, I have the old thing where if I'm getting down on myself and saying bad things about myself, like in front of the mirror, or like, oh, I don't like my tummy today, or my thighs, I need to shave, or whatever, I'm saying negative physical things about me, I immediately switch it into Trump's voice, and then I defend myself. I'm like,
Nice.
I'm like, nuh-uh, you shut up. I'm awesome, and it
Right.
always works.
Yeah, borderline schizophrenia. But I think that's cool.
No, because they're not intrusive, unwanted thoughts.
That's true.
I have to make them happen myself.
That's the difference. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, so if you're thinking anything negative about yourself, put it in Trump's voice and you'll immediately stand up for your awesomeness.
I bet Alec Baldwin has that trouble of turning it off, right?
I feel like he is the voice in a lot of people's heads. So yeah, we'll see.
Good point.
All right, guys, please take care of yourselves, take care of each other, enjoy the debates. We'll see you tomorrow morning. And I've been AG.
I've been Jaleesa Johnson.
I've been Jordan Coburn.
And them's the beans. The Daily Beans is produced by AG, featuring Jaleesa Johnson and Jordan Coburn, and engineered and edited by Mackenzie Mazzell and Starburns Industries. Our marketing manager is Sarah Lee Steiner, and our merchandising manager is Sarah Hirschberger Valencia. Fact-checking and research by AG, Jaleesa Johnson, and Jordan Coburn, with executive assistance by Amanda Reeder. Our music is written and performed by They Might Be Giants. Our web design and branding are by Joelle Reeder with Moxie Design Studios, and our website is dailybeanspod.com.